We are live. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show, and make sure to smash up that like button. We got people in the comments already. Everett, I'm not sure I remember you from, but welcome to the show. Welcome to another Monday night chill stream. Welcome. Let's see what's going on. Not a whole lot. This week has been not a whole lot's going on anywhere, but title of tonight's Monday night chill stream is defending the rule set. That's an idea I've been sort of working out for a while because I noticed that when things go wrong, they always go wrong from the top, right? A fish rots from the head. It's always the fault of the leadership. It's always the fault of the chiefs, not the Indians. You know, that's the reality. The chiefs were unprepared, or prepared for the wrong thing, or however you want to say it, or they just they never envisioned this could possibly happen, and then this happened. It all collapsed, right? I've mentioned that the famous Ben Franklin quote. The Ben Franklin quote when they're done with the Constitutional Convention, and they've just finished the Constitution, and the ink is just still drying, and some woman says, Mr. Franklin or Master Franklin, what have you wrought for us? And Ben Franklin looks at her and he says, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And I thought, well, how amazingly arrogant is that, right? Ben Franklin saying, well, we made something, but you have to defend it with your own life. You have to animate it, and you have to keep it alive. And you have to defend it against all enemies, right? Foreign and domestic. And we're not going to give you the tools to do that. That is an aristocratic worldview. And when you understand it that way, that you are being charged with a job, the hardest job conceivable, right? The maintenance of a state against hostile forces that want to destroy the rule set, which we call the Constitution, the set of rules that we all live on, right? The agreements that we live by, that we call our laws. So you don't get to choose what the laws are. You don't get to design them. You don't get to, you have no say in how this is created, but we're going to put it on your back to keep it alive against all possible threats. Now, how ridiculous is that, right? When you look at that little that story, whether it's apocryphal or whether it really happened, I don't know. It tells you a lot about why things fundamentally fail, and the failure is mostly internal collapse, right? It's possible there could be a foreign army that could destroy America, but that ended like when we developed the atomic bomb. Basically, nobody was ever going to invade us ever again. The only reason why we don't invade North Korea is because they have one crummy nuclear weapon, and that's all you need is one. You just need one nuke, pop one nuke, fry about 1 million people, 2 million people, whatever, and then that'll dial back anyone's appetite for war. Which, by the way, they're making a movie about Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer, who was 100% in the Venona transcripts, which the Venona transcripts were the first wiretaps that the FBI had back in the days, back in the 40s against the communists, and absolutely proved beyond the shadow of a doubt that Oppenheimer was a communist and that he was routinely feeding all the intel on the projects that he was working to the Russians. But that's, do we all know that? I don't know. Some people know that. Some and things like this, like when I start to think about why things go bad and how they go bad, I have literally outstripped everyone on the internet, and as far as I know, everyone everywhere. And you say, well, you're really breaking your own, pat yourself in the back. You might think that, but all rule sets, all sets of rules, all sets of laws have been overcome. The nations have been betrayed, kings have been betrayed, people have sold out, right? To be a sellout is like one of the worst things people can call you, right? There are true believers, and then there are the sellouts, right? And there's nothing more contemptible than a sellout. And what that is, that's an emotional reaction, of course, to someone who has decided to break the rule set, subvert the rule set some way, somehow, so that they can gain some reward. And that has happened everywhere all the time. And it's difficult to defend against, and particularly difficult when there is no mechanism in the rule set, in the laws, to correct the errors. Right? That's a popular. Right now, it's still, they're still beefing about this because they're going to try to do a police brutality thing again over in Tennessee or something like that. But the Second Amendment recently, last year, was the Bruin decision, or it's called the Bruin versus NYSERDA versus Bruin. Right? There was a law, very briefly, law in New York that you need to show special need to the state to carry a gun concealed. And this lawsuit took 104 years to get to the Supreme Court. And when it finally did, the Supreme Court ruled, boom, read the Constitution as it's written and apply the law as it was applied at that time. Period, end of story. And it was like a 6-3 decision. It should have been 9-0, but whatever. Politics is politics. And there's politics in this. But the point is, this special needs law was passed in New York and stood for 104 years without being corrected. That's the problem. There's no easy mechanism to correct these things. You have either a stupid elite, an incompetent elite, a corrupt elite who decides, hey, let me you see that, oh, that rule, that second rule, just forget about that one. We're just going to toss that aside. We're going to only selectively enforce the ones we want when we want. And when this is first done, it's usually not that bad. Only affects a few people, blah, 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 blah. It was just New York State, but it became New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, blah, blah, blah. This era grew and grew and grew and grew, like, to cover a third of the country. There were 10 states that all followed this kind of thing. And a lot of people in those states were subject to rules that were unconstitutional, in direct opposition to the original rule set, the Constitution. So not only do you have to defend this rule set, which you had no hand in creating, right? You have to abide by it and defend it against all foreign enemies. But if somebody comes, if one of your own people stabs you in the back, you know what I mean? You have no recourse. There's nothing you can do. So, however, the reality is democracy and constitutions are the best forms, or have been up till now, the best forms of human governance there could possibly be. And because they produce the most good for the most people, period, end of story. Yes, I know central banking and all the rest of that, but this method is a pretty good method. The flaw, of course, like I said, no simple mechanism for returning to the original rule set. Okay, Bitcoin has that, but constitutions don't have that. And as much as I try not to think about stuff, I was telling myself I should read more. Right, I was like, I'm not really reading enough. And I was rummaging around, I was moving some stuff. So I want to read something that takes me away from today and like all of my thoughts of the current times. So I decided to read this. Right, where is it? It says Aristotle's Poetics, right? It's a book, look how thick it is. This is 115 pages. And it's supposed to be Aristotle's thoughts on how you should, it's not poetry, it's not roses are red, violets are blue. It's playwrights, it's drama and narrative, writing of tragedies in specific. So it has a foreword or introductory essay by someone named Francis Ferguson. So I'm going to read to you Francis Ferguson's, this is his resume to show you how important of a guy he is and why you should pay attention to the first 45 pages of this book, because it's written by Francis Ferguson. So, Francis Ferguson, born in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1904, studied at Harvard and then at Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. After receiving his undergraduate degree in 1926, he was the associate director of the American Laboratory Theater in New York, which was under the direction of Richard Bolavatsky. Since 1930, Mr. Ferguson has been on the faculties of the New School for Social Research, Bennington College, where he organized and directed the College Theater, Princeton University, and Indiana University. For 1 year, he was a member of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. He is currently a professor of comparative literature at Rutgers University. Mr. Ferguson has been writing theater criticism for more than 30 years. Among his books are The Idea of a Theater, Dante's Drama of the Mind, The Human Image of blah, 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 blah. It lists the books he's written. And I'm trying not to be, I'm really trying hard not to be pissed off by that resume. Like, how do you come from Albuquerque, New Mexico, right to Harvard and right to Oxford? But you get to page, where is it? You get to page 31, right? This is still Ferguson explaining to you. This is his essay explaining how Aristotle thinks about plays and blah, 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 right? So in Aristotle's view, in constructing the plot and working it out with the proper diction, the poet should place the scene as far as possible before his eyes. Again, the poet should work out his play to the best of his power with appropriate gestures, where those who feel emotion are the most convincing through a natural sympathy with the characters they represent. And one who is agitated storms, one who is angry rages with the most lifelike reality. Hence, poetry, writing of plays, implies either a happy gift of nature or a strain of madness. In the case, in the one case, a man can take the mold of any character. In the other, he's lifted out of his proper self. So this is the way Aristotle is talking about playwrights and actors and how they interact. Okay, now we go back to Ferguson, and this is where it knocked me right out of the book. It was already like not happy in the first 30 pages. Here's where it fucking knocked me out. Now this is Ferguson writing, the purpose of any good technique of acting is to help the actor to perceive the action of the character he is portraying. Okay, that makes sense. And then to recreate it in his own thought and feeling, as Aristotle says, the playwright must do. So what he's saying is that the actor and the playwright have to do a similar thing internally, right? Now, here's where I wanted to, this is where I just like, it just fucking kills me. The best known acting technique of this kind is that of the Moscow Arts Theater, which is widely cultivated in several versions in this country. Yeah, no shit. The late Jacques Coupeau taught such a technique, and so did the best theater schools in Germany before Hitler. And I'm sitting there going, what the fuck does Adolf Hitler have to do with Aristotle, Sophocles, and fucking ancient plays? How the fuck does Marxism and Hitler get thrown in here? But now you know why this guy went from being a nobody in Albuquerque, New Mexico, to being a fucking Rhodes Scholar at Oxford. Now, Francis Ferguson, I don't know what kind of name that is. It sounds like he could be a tribe member, because Francis is like an Italian name and Ferguson is like a Scottish name. I don't know. But I read that and it just, I'm thinking I wanted to get away from this. I want to go, and I just put my mind in a place where I'm hanging out with Aristotle and I'm going to try and learn about theater and try to understand this tragedy and blah, 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 blah. You know, like that's what I'm trying to do. Fuck if I cannot escape it. I just cannot escape this. Let's see what's going on in the comments. Everett, top up to, I don't know. Formerly EV, top up, tail up. I don't know what that means. Hopefully Everett, everything's going well. Anyway, he's posted 5 times in the chat, but there are people that post 5 times in the chat and I look at the chat replay and they don't show up. That's how I know they're like Fed accounts. So if Everett's still there 2 days from now, then I'll know he's not a Fed. But if I look at this like 3 days from now to see the view count, how many people watched this video and then whatever, who smashed up the like button, which is what you're supposed to do, right? See the banner right there telling you what to do, smash up that like button. So I'll look at that, and if I don't see Everett's comments, then I know Everett's a Fed. Fed accounts do not appear in the comments. Virgil Doc Purple Heart shows up. Judas Fly Chai shows up. Trad Dad shows up. A bunch of guys, like everyone I know. All the names I know show up. But if you don't show up, if you post 5 times in the chat and then I can't see it in the live chat or during the rebroadcast, then I know you're a fan. So yeah, I was like, okay, now I don't want to read this anymore, because I don't want to read this for 2 reasons. One, the guy's clearly a Marxist and a bootlicker for that whole ideology, and I don't think it makes me suspicious of anything he has to say about the subject, because he won't say, listen, I approach the subject of tragic plays from a Marxist perspective, and here's how I interpret it. If he did that, it would be honest, and of course, at the time this was written, I can't remember, when was this published? Let's see when this was published. 1961. It was published in 1961, like middle of the Cold War. He would have been openly rejected. Nobody who's an open Marxist, right, would be able to. I don't think at that time be considered widely popular. Again, the elites groomed this guy to do what he was supposed to do, and he went around to dozens of colleges, big important schools, and I'm sure he made all sorts of contacts with people who were exactly like him to reinforce a bunch of stuff. But that's the reality. How do you defend against that? How do you defend Marxism as an ideology? Was specifically designed to destroy the United States, right? So how do you defend against that when you have someone like that in this country, with the same rights and privileges and voting and access to media? Like, how do you defend against that? What is the method? There's no method. So the critical thing, and even for these like this, everybody in this fucking channel is like, listen, we hate democracy, and democracy sucks, and as soon as Hitler burns the Constitution, white Wakanda is going to spring up, and every black person will grab a Jew and tie the Jew around his neck, tie the Jew's arms around his neck, and then he's going to swim back to Africa. Like, you think that that's going to happen, and I think, no, that's not going to happen. The dollar's going to hyperinflate, and that Bitcoin's going to take its place. One of us is delusional, the other one has a shot. You decide which is which. But the fact that the fact that some people are waiting for that, right? There's a passivity there. This is the reality of people on the fucking internet, right? The reason why I'm hostile to this audience, I'm screaming at people, unsubscribe, and they won't unsubscribe. I don't know if that says something more about me or something more about you. But the internet is not known for kindly people making thoughtful comments, right? So that's the way the audience is. That's the way the trolls are out there in the dark. So, why would you expect courtesy and kindness from the person in front of the camera? That doesn't make as much sense as you think, right? Oh, you have to be nice and good. Well, we act like total scumbags. Yeah, no, that's not. We're not going to do that. That's not how I play it anyway. So that whether you think Hitler's going to come and create white Wakanda, Hitler's going to have some rules. I don't know what the rules are, but he's going to have some rules. And what's going to happen if somebody breaks the rules? How do you restore the rule? How do you defend that rule set? And that's the most important question to be answered. It almost doesn't matter what the rules are. I mean, it sort of does, but it almost doesn't matter what the rules are. That there have to be clear ways for the maximum amount of power to be applied to defend the rule set from unauthorized changes. You know what I mean? Something that's unconstitutional, like the NYSERPA versus Bruin law, or anything else, like the deplatform, and social media, Facebook shutting down the groups it doesn't like, editing your posts, to putting a banner saying, fact check, this is not true, or this is only partially true, this meme contains something. Like, the thought policing, right, which is in direct violation of the First Amendment, and which has been, done on Facebook, on Twitter, on here, on YouTube, on all sorts of platforms, that, there's no one that says, hey, corporate terms of service are not law, first off, right? And they do not supersede, they're not greater than the Constitution and the First Amendment. There's no mechanism where you could put Mark Zuckerberg in jail. Board of directors of Facebook, you could freeze all their assets and put them in cuffs. There's no way to do that. And that you go, and if you suggest that, people say, well, you're a lunatic. It sounds like lunacy because there's no mechanism for correcting when a corporation says our terms of service are final, and we will enforce them or not enforce them based on criteria we're not even going to tell you. And if you don't get to speak in public, fuck the Constitution and fuck the First Amendment, right? We have a lot of money and a lot of lawyers, and we can hold you back forever and ever. This is the problem. How do you maintain the integrity of RuleSet? How is that done? Okay. The way that's done in Bitcoin is consensus, right? Everyone has to agree. There literally has to be 100% agreement of everyone in Bitcoin, the miners, the exchanges, the people like me who just buy it and hold it, the merchants who send it back and forth. There has to be 100% agreement to this change, or the change doesn't go through. And that's really the best mechanism, right? It's not an elite at the top who decides, here's what we made, all you guys make it work. It's, if it doesn't work for everybody, then it doesn't work. This is sort of the ultimate thing. This is what the future consensus governance is going to be based on. If your idea does not benefit 100% of the people involved, then it will not be implemented. Simple as that. You know what I mean? It's really that simple. And that's why it's too revolutionary for people to understand. You live in this little world where you think what you're allowed to think, you believe what you're allowed to believe, and you don't ever pressure test it. You don't ever look back and go, hey, wait a minute, does that make sense? Do I really believe that? Is that true? That's a big problem, right? Last few weeks, I got a couple of videos I'll show you in a second. How long am I going for? 24 minutes straight. There's I've been talking about, that the moon landing was faked, right? And people go, oh my God, what are you, crazy? The moon landing was fake. I watched it on TV when I was 7 and I thought it was real. And I didn't realize there's a guy who wrote a book, like, We Never Landed on the Moon. That's the title. And he said, well, who the fuck is this guy? He was the head of Jet Propulsion Labs. The head of JPL, which is what NASA grew out of, wrote a book called We Never Went to the Moon. The paperback version, if you can find it, it's like $50 a pop. You know what I mean? It's never been reprinted, and it's never gonna get reprinted, because this guy was, and I can't remember the guy's name, I should have wrote it down. He was the head of JPL, and he had like top secret clearance at the Atomic Energy Agency. And he wrote a book saying, we never went to the moon. You never heard of this guy. He never got on TV. He didn't do the lecture circuit. It just bloop, and all just goes away. And a lot of us, like, especially if you're a boomer, like boomer, used to be a boomer complaint that, oh, for Christ's sakes, we can put a man on the moon, but we can't fill the potholes in New York City. Oh, we can put a man on the moon, but we can't fill in the blanks, So that was like a boomer complaint for a while during that era of space exploration. But I got a couple of videos to show you. They're up on YouTube. And when you look at how fucking incredibly shitty these fucking videos are, how incredibly, mind-blowingly terrible they are as fakes. Virgil Doc, Purple Heart, welcome to the show, sir. So we're going to show you some videos, short videos, and we'll go over how ridiculous this is. And you believe it like a lot of other people believe that Americans went to the moon, we walked to the moon, blah, 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 blah. And when you go back and look at it, it's gotta say, man, it's not looking terribly realistic. The First video is 1 minute long, and it's the moon buggy, and I think some audio. I love that. I love the staticky, crackly shit. Even though when they called Nixon, when Nixon called them, it was perfect. There was no static on the line. But the best part about that video, you're watching the crappy moon car. The moon car drives away, and it drives towards the little space capsule, the one that they have to use to go back to Earth. The moon car is the same size as the fucking space capsule. That's one. Like, how did you fit this fucking thing on that capsule? Like, where was it? What did you do? Like, even if it was folded up, where did you fold it up? You know, the second thing is, if you watch the wheels, you watch the dust coming off the wheels, right? And the dust falls right back down to Earth. It goes up a little bit, it spits up a little bit behind the tire, and falls right back to the Earth. I'll show you again in a second. Right? And the other thing, the reason why that's ridiculous is because we all know that moon's gravity is only 1/6 of Earth's gravity. So the astronauts used to do these huge bounding leaps, right? They would do these huge, gigantic fucking leaps. They would fly across. There's no atmosphere, of course. They would just one big jump, and they would go like 30 feet. Except the car doesn't do that. The car stays completely in contact with the surface at all times. It doesn't go flying off like it should. The dust doesn't go flying 6 times higher than it should, right? It just looks exactly like some kind of car going through a dusty landscape on Earth, because when the dirt comes out, or the moon dust comes out from the tires, it rooster tails and falls directly down. And then again, when the moon buggy drives away and you see the lunar lander in the distance, look at the size of the moon buggy and look at the size of the lunar lander, and explain to me how how both of those things got there at the same time. Gotta have the screechy static to show all the radiation that they're flying through. But you've seen the dust come out of the wheels, right? It just falls right back down to the Earth. It doesn't go flying 6 times higher than it would, because you're on the moon. It just falls right back down. And the size of the lunar rover, the moon buggy, compared to the size of the capsule that supposedly brought it there, they're like fucking equal. They're like 1-to-1 the same fucking size. When you look at it now, you go, holy shit, that is the fakest fucking thing I ever saw in my life. Here's one more. This is a short one. This is 23 seconds. It's also the moon buggy, but and I'll give you a hint. There's something missing from this bit of video. It's not the staticky, burst of static and shit and the radiation thing. No, they made sure to include that. But there's one thing missing, and let's see if you notice what it is. See how they zoomed in? They zoomed in on the moon buggy because it's near the crater. It's a big crater, right? And the moon buggy's at the crater. So what's missing? What's missing is the tire tracks. I'm going to show you again. There's no tire tracks behind the moon buggy. There's no tire tracks through the dust that you just saw. Unless this is the part of the moon with no dust on it. Maybe the aliens were vacuuming. But look behind the moon buggy. When it zooms in, look for tire tracks. Tell me if you see them. Did you see any tire tracks? There's no tire tracks behind the moon buggy that drove to the crater. So I guess the aliens vacuumed that part of the moon, so there's no dust on that part of the moon. That's the dust-free zone. When you look at this and you go, Jesus fucking Christ, this is the shittiest fake thing I've ever seen. But I saw it when I was a little kid 50 years ago. What the fuck did I know? And, you believed what you were told on television, and we all did. And this sits in your head. I've mentioned this before. Stuff sits in your head for decades, like decades. And you never examine it critically. You never think, hey, wait a minute. Did that really happen? And why do I think that? Why do I believe that? And you go back and look at it, you're like, oh my fucking God. Like, holy crap, how did I buy that? But like I've shown you with selective attention, you can miss shit. You can miss things forever. Like, you can be right on top of things and not notice it for a very, very, very long time. Once you accept the premise that what you're seeing is whatever X, Y, and Z, it's a car on the moon. It's a dune buggy on the moon, and that's that. Once you accept that premise, you don't think, hey, these fucking people lying to me. This government that lied about the war in Vietnam, this government that lied about Watergate, this government that lied about everything under the sun. Are they lying about this too? And the answer is yes, of course. Of course they are. And that's why I don't watch television. I don't watch any of this. I just saw in the newspapers, I was the other day, we're sending tanks to the Ukraine. Do you remember, like, right before Christmas, it was going to be nuclear war? Right? Oh my God, the Ukraine, nuclear war. Remember how they scared the crap out of you? Right in time for Christmas. Well, I went mashing down the stock market because I didn't like the interest rate increases. We're sending tanks to the Ukraine. The Russians aren't going to do anything. They're just going to take it. We're going to send some M1A Abrams tanks there. They're going to blast the fuck out of the Russian tanks. Russian tanks cannot stand against American tanks. Anyone that tells you otherwise is full of shit. We will blow them literally out of off the face of the earth. They don't have a fucking chance. They don't have a chance. Not only are we going to send the tanks, we're going to send our guys too. You know what I mean? Trust me, the crews inside those tanks are not going to be speaking Ukrainian. They're going to be from Indiana. You know what I mean? And they're going to get the job done. And the Russians ain't going to do shit. Modern day Russia, right? As we all remember, when you think back to basics, Jacob Schiff gave Lev Bronstein $20 million to go and fund the Russian Revolution, right? The Bolshevik Revolution was funded from Wall Street, right? Jacob Schiff gave Leon Trotsky, Lev Bronstein the money. He went back to Russia. They bought a shit ton of weapons. Trotsky was the first head of the Red Army, and they began their conquest of White Russia. Russia is entirely, since the Tsarist period, a creation of Wall Street. It always was. It was never anything other than that. This is Wall Street using guns and insane Jewish homosexual murderers to take over an entire country. And it worked. For a bunch of different reasons, but mostly because the central bankers of Europe and America are co-ethnics. You know what I mean? And those families intermarry. So nothing's going to happen that they don't want to happen. So the Bolshevik Revolution entirely financed by Wall Street. And when you think about it, like this Oppenheimer movie they're going to make, and I don't know, I have no idea. Like, remember, Oppenheimer fried like a million chinks. He turned whatever, like a million Japanese into crispy critters, right? Are they going to make him out to be a troubled hero, a misunderstood genius, whatever? You know, it's going to be bullshit. He was 100% a communist, and he gave everything to the Soviet Union, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, which was devastated after the war, but somehow managed to build a nuclear bomb 4 years after America. Like we did our first atomic bomb in 1945. The Russians managed it 4 years later. 4 years later, they weren't even done rebuilding World War II. How could they have done that? Because we literally handed them page by fucking page everything. When I say we handed, we flew airplanes, cargo planes full of fucking documents, boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of documents. There's no fucking way they could match our technical fucking skill. They hadn't even fucking finished cleaning up the fucking bodies from when the Germans left. Get the fuck out of here. But you buy into this the same way you buy into the fucking moon hoax. You know what I mean? Oh, I saw it on TV. Everyone said it happened, so it must have happened. No, there was a guy, and he's on the videos up on BitChute, but a guy wrote a book about that. He was responsible for the Lend-Lease program that was run out of Newark, New Jersey. And he would say the communists would come and demand this, and they would demand that, and they would demand welfare payments, and they would demand all kinds of crazy stuff, and stuff that they weren't supposed to get. Like literally, the Pacific Fleet was still sunk underwater in Hawaii, right? And the Russians wanted copper wire to run electricity in their cities, but copper wire was desperately needed by the U.S. Navy to rewire the ship's fire control systems when they pulled the ships up off the bottom of the fucking the bay in Hawaii. But the U.S. Navy, the entire Pacific Fleet, was put on hold. Its repair and refit was put on hold so that enough copper wire to go around the Earth 5 times could be spun, set aside, and I think in Harriman, New York, and for shipment to Russia after the war was over. It was against the rule set of Lend-Lease, but whatever, they got all kinds of stuff done. So when you understand that the Cold War was fake, the current war in Ukraine is fake, and we know it's fake. It's fake. But oh my God, they're going to nuke each other. Remember, at Christmas it was nukes. Today, nobody even pays attention. Oh, we're sending tanks to fucking Ukraine. La-di-da. Right? You have to stop buying into all this stuff that they put in front of you, because it's just stupid fucking. It's all stupid distractions that that hide the most important thing, and that most important thing is the money printer. Here's a quick video, 47 seconds. 47 seconds. It's a meme. You've seen it on if you were on Twitter. It was on Twitter. I found it on YouTube, and it's the money printer guys in the background and the anime girl distracting you from what's happening in the background. 47 seconds. It's a weird Japanese song, but it's cute. And that's it, right? It's a great meme. It's better for kids who grew up in the 90s who were into that anime stuff. That's like huge for them. But the point is made. They're going to put something in front of you to distract the fact that in the background, they just keep printing money. And that's what's going to cause everything to go to shit. Even this phony, the hunt for domestic terrorists or whatever it is they think they're doing. This is, they will actually create a domestic terror threat by money printing. You know what I mean? It's not politics. We know white supremacy is bullshit. We know racism doesn't exist. Anti-Semitism doesn't exist. You don't hate people because they look different. You hate them because they act like scumbags. You know what I mean? And anti-Semitism assumes that every time there's friction between Jews and Gentiles, it's always the fault of the Gentiles. That's impossible. That is literally not possible. So believing in two things that don't exist, racism and anti-Semitism, which is what a lot of Americans do, they absolutely believe these two are very real things, which amazingly have magic powers. They pop up out of nowhere. They make things happen that you didn't expect to happen. We have to, sooner or later, they're going to make the case. Listen, in order to defeat these twin evils, racism and anti-Semitism, we're going to have to burn the Constitution. And when they get the proper mix demographically of really dumb motherfuckers, they'll cheer. And you guys, most of the audience here, will also cheer as they light the fucking Constitution on fire. And you think, man, you really think you're going to survive this, or it's going to be good for you, and you are in for an extremely, extremely rude awakening. You know what I mean? Most of your life, you've been wrong about everything, but there hasn't been a consequence. Once that document goes up in flames, yeah, there's going to be consequences. Anyway, but what does the future look like? Is there no hope, James? Is there no hope? Of course, because Bitcoin. So I got a 7-minute 51 second video of Michael Saylor, who is the patron saint, not really. Michael Saylor is a CEO of a company called MicroStrategy. Which is the first public company to put $425 million of its own money into Bitcoin, and then he ended up borrowing a bunch more. He owns or controls about $3 billion-ish of Bitcoin right now. He himself bought Bitcoin before he had his company buy it. So he's a true believer. And in this clip, like I said, it's 7 minutes, 51 seconds. He's going to cover a lot of topics. He's up on stage. They're questioning about some things. And he does this thing where he goes, before he gives a long answer, and he gives long, complete answers, but he does this deep exhalation, I guess, to force the air out of his lungs so he'll refill his lungs and get the conversation going. But listen to what Michael Saylor has to say about the world and your role in it, and how Bitcoin affects the world.
So we kicked this off yesterday morning talking about the race to avoid the war, which I thought was kind of a parallel framing to the speech that you gave last month for the Atlas Society Gala. And I loved your line, I've been repeating it nonstop since, about you don't want to be a martyr, you want to be a winner. And I wondered if you could just, in your own words, elaborate a little bit about what you mean by that.
Well, it started out with a discussion of Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged, and the theme of the book is the system is rigged, overregulated. You can work as hard as you want, but at the end of the day, you can't succeed. And the solution is go on strike and withdraw from the economy to Galt's Gulch. And John Galt's solution is you should withdraw your labor from a corrupt economy. And the observation I made is that Satoshi is like John Galt, except a better engineer. Because John Galt's solution was it's rigged, go start your own economy in a valley. And Satoshi's solution was, his observation was you're working as hard as you can for a currency that's being consistently debased by someone behind that curtain. And if you work your entire life and you make every sacrifice, they can still take everything you've done from you in 12 months if they wish to just turn the dial to the left hard enough. And once you realize that, you realize that there's no point in playing a game that is rigged. But on the other hand, going on strike and waging a full frontal attack on the game that is rigged is just making yourself a martyr. There are a lot of things that I disagree with in this world, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that you look at and disagree with in this world, but I have the humility to know that I can't change those things through a full frontal attack. I can just become a puddle of blood in front of the tank or in front of the wall. Satoshi gave us something, a place where we could win, and a strategy we could win. And the strategy is withdraw your economic energy from the currency, which is the rigged system, and move it into a currency which is to your benefit. Not only do you move your energy into a system that isn't continually bleeding you, but it also turns out that not only is Bitcoin not an inflationary currency, Bitcoin is a deflationary currency which is viral and getting stronger. When you work as hard as you can and you sacrifice everything you have in order to support a weak currency that's collapsing, you just service the regime. And when you put it into a semi-weak currency, slowly weakening, right, you still just surrender your hope and your future. When you put it into a deflationary currency, a currency that gets stronger as more people join, not only do you stop feeding the corrupt system, but you begin to strengthen the virtuous system. And Bitcoin gets stronger as more people join. Bitcoin gets stronger as you put more money into it. But Bitcoin also gets stronger as you put more creativity or innovation. Every single developer that builds a Lightning app or builds a new improvement to Bitcoin makes the network stronger. Every communicator and every creator, every time you create you see me, I share tips videos. They're wonderful. Tip if you're in the audience. I love them. I share the crypto couples videos. They're wonderful. I love them. I share some of your memes. I laugh at all your memes, but there's only some of them I can share. But when you create something of beauty that's compelling, that's communicative, you're making Bitcoin better, you're making the world a better place, we're reaching a new audience. And when you're working behind the scenes, if you work for a regulator or a policymaker, or I meet people that are working at a bank. I met some people the other day. They said, we're at a bank, we're believers, and we're going to get our bank into Bitcoin. Tell us what to do. And I said, well, here's my experience. Thank you for helping. Every single person that puts their vocational skill into this network makes it stronger. When you put your balance sheet in the network, you make it stronger. When you put your passion into the network, you make it stronger. When you bring your organization to the network, you make it stronger. And this thing you know that it's only going to get stronger, faster, smarter over time. You also know that there's never going to be more than 21 million, but you also know that over time there's going to be less than 21 million. And a point I made to Natalie this morning in another interview is I said, the really amazing thing about Bitcoin is Bitcoin has in essence not just decentralized money, it is not just provided sovereignty and given property rights to the individual, it's also decentralized charity and it's privatized virtue. And that I mean it this way, if you put all of your money on a boat and it was Bitcoin, and it sunk, and you died with your private keys, you've just made a contribution to the rest of the network, right? If you want to do good for the civilization, you don't have to find a charity. You don't have to give all your money to a foundation of do-gooders that are going to give it to someone, that you don't have to give it to Greenpeace or the Sierra Club or the Gates Foundation, right? 3 of my favorites. You don't have to give it to anybody. You don't have to put up with virtue signalers that badger you to death, that say you're not a good person if you don't give all your money away. The truth is, you can self-custody your money, and on your deathbed, you can gift it to whatever cause you want. And the default, if you don't have a better idea, is you die with your private keys in your head, and you gift it pro rata, fairly and equitably, to every other person that got you to where you were.
Now, anybody, that is, if you don't hear that, that is maybe the most subversive type of speech that anyone could give, and it's a response to a question. Does anyone think that the system is ethical and pure? Nobody thinks that. Nobody in the left, nobody in the right, nobody in the center, right? Has everyone noticed that shit's getting more expensive? It's not that shit's getting more expensive, the money's getting weaker, okay? Your solution is wait for a hero, expect somebody who's already in the system to fix it. And what they provide to you is Elon Musk or Donald Trump or whatever, someone who's already benefited enormously and is still deeply invested in the way things are, to bullshit you into thinking, oh no, I'll make some changes and I'll fix things and we'll get back in the right track. And a lot of people still believe that, right? And lower down at other levels, there's people, working to do other things. Obviously, the domestic terror thing, all these shitty federal cops, they got to fucking justify their paychecks. So they got to create something. There's all sorts of other stuff. You know what I mean? There's tons and tons and tons of things going on. But if you believe the stuff that they tell you, if you believe these narratives, that dancing girl, the little Japanese girl doing a dance in front of the fucking money printer, if you're paying attention to the dance in front of the money printer, you're never gonna fucking get it. You're just never going to get it. And I would say if there's only 2 choices, it's more than 2 choices, but if there's only 2 choices, wait for Hitler or put your money into Bitcoin, obviously everybody knows the choice that I'm going to make, that I have made. I just smashed up the buy button earlier today. So, I choose to withdraw my economic energy from a rigged fucking game that I can't win. Okay? And it's what we do is legal. What we do is 100% legal and above board. You can see they have conferences. You can talk about this with anybody. There are pro-Bitcoin senators. There's one from Wyoming. Ted Cruz jumps on the bandwagon every now and then for 5 minutes, and he jumps off again. But we have representation, legal representation in the Senate and in a couple of people in the House as well. We are going to be the winners, and you are going to be at best a puddle of blood. That's if you have the balls to actually go out and do something, which, let's face it, most of you just going to stay behind the screen. The third possibility, other than Hitler's going to rescue us, or Bitcoin's going to take over the position of global reserve currency, is right now we're in between. We're not close to hyperinflation yet. It's bad, but it's not that bad. And with the number of years that I have left in life, you know what I mean? I'll probably squeak out. I'll get into the graveyard 5 minutes before it all goes to shit. Maybe that's your strategy. You know what I mean? Maybe you think, you know what? I'm lucky. I'm really lucky. I got great timing, and I will croak 5 minutes before the nightmare begins. And who knows? Maybe you're right. You know what I mean? I don't know what the timing of this is going to be, but the arguments that Michael Saylor makes, and you hear he's winking people. He says, I laugh at all your memes, but I can only share some of them. This guy knows way, way, way more than he's letting on. He knows there's stuff we can't say because we don't really have free speech. That the rule set, the Constitution, was violated a long time ago, right? When Congress gave up its responsibility for controlling the money and coinage of the United States, handed that responsibility over to the Federal Reserve Bank of America, which is not federal, has no reserves. When they did that, this was probably the death blow, the real death blow of the Constitution, more than anything else, because it gave a corporation of Wall Street bankers, who they are, ruthless cosmopolitans, gave them control of incentive the entire nation. And you know what? Listen, they spent a lot of time just stealing and taking stuff over, printing money and buying what they wanted, and shipping companies and real estate and all. They did. They do that to acquire for themselves, of course. But as there's less and less to steal from, they have to print more and more, hoping that every business goes belly up. There's no small businesses. It'll only be Walmarts and Amazon stores and shit like that. And they'll keep shaking this until every last bit comes out. And if they break it, and they're going to break it, they're not going to be the ones responsible. But when they break it, the people who are going to succeed once it really breaks down are the Bitcoin people, not the ideology people, not the Hitler's coming to save us and he's going to burn the Constitution and make all the Africans swim back to Africa with the Jew strapped to their neck. That's not going to happen. That's a wildly unrealistic expectation, and we're going to go back. We're going to do the Michael J. Fox strategy where we go back in time to whatever. We're not going to go back. There will be an America 2.0, and it will be run by Bitcoiners. It will be run in a very, very different fashion than things are run today. One of the things I read recently that was pretty interesting was in 1916, 1916, 1 year before America entered World War I, there was an attempt to get a congressional amendment passed, or a constitutional amendment passed, that went around Congress, that America could not go to war unless it was put to a popular vote. So should we declare war on whatever? Oceania, right? Yes or no, you'd have to ask the people. Surprisingly, that constitutional amendment never went through, or unsurprising, because the people who control when we go to war and when we don't go to war had already done what they needed to do, control the money in 1913. So 3 years later, when a desperate group of patriots thought, oh man, they're trying to get us into this war over there, the way we can stop it is use the rule set, use the Constitution. We'll get a constitutional amendment passed that we cannot go to war unless it passes a popular vote, and that got squashed. Okay, that got squashed way more than 100 years ago. Okay, that's the power they had then. They have all sorts of power. They will make you believe in shit that didn't happen. They will make you ignore stuff that did happen, and you'll be completely fucking lost. I would prefer that less people be lost and more people have the mental tools to figure out how they're being bullshitted, and then they could probably join us. But you're free to wait for Hitler, or you're free to just go, you know what, it's really not that bad. I'll probably die before any of this kicks off, so what the fuck, I don't give a shit. Okay, you know what I mean? But I'm a proactive kind of guy. I have to feel like I'm doing something, and that's important for me, especially as I get older. You know what I mean? I think I have every understanding that I need, and now with what time and energy I have left, I want to move the needle in the direction that I think it ought to go. But anyway, with that, we're just over an hour. We went, the viewership went from 6 to 2 to 3 to 4, and now we're still at 2. Let's take a quick look in the chat, see if anybody said anything there. No, Everett. I got a feeling Everett's a Fed. I don't remember that name from it. I don't recall Everett from the circles. That's another reason why I like to have the channel, subscriber channel small. I don't want to have to learn 100 new names and 100 new people and figure out who to give wrenches to. I know there's a relatively small number of commenters. I pretty much know their names and their handles, and if I don't like them, I'll just whack them with the ban hammer. But it keeps me from getting lost in the chat, especially if I've had some, which, you know, part of suppressing ideas is, you know, getting people thrown off track. But when you have a conference like that thing that Michael Saylor had, you have a group of people that meet in public and discuss their ideas and what they're doing to make the world a better place. That has nothing to do with republicanism or parliamentary procedures. Like, we're just bypassing all of that, man. We're going past all of that nonsense because we know the whole thing is shit. It's a giant pile of shit, and we don't want anything to do with it. So we're going to go do our own thing. And right now, it's perceived as so non-threatening that, you know, it's permitted, and the longer it's permitted, the more people become accustomed to it, and then we're going to win because we have a better idea. We have maybe the most important idea in human history, that is wealth that cannot be confiscated. And I don't think enough people grasp just how big of a deal that is. Again, that's outside your ability to think. You haven't been taught to think this way. Like when I ask people, why does democracy rule the earth? And they go, they don't know. You're like a fucking monkey staring at a computer because no one ever asked you a question like that. Why does this thing succeed and this thing fail? You don't actually think, you know. I don't give a shit what books you read. You know what I mean? I really don't give a fuck what books you read. You know what I mean? That doesn't impress me. Can you think? Can you reason? And the answer is, for most people, no. You can repeat strings of words you heard somebody else say, but you yourself can't think. So I want to ask a simple question. Why does democracy rule the earth and not some other system? You don't have an answer, right? You have a very limited menu of choices, right? And you can't go out. You can't go outside of that for a number of different reasons. But people like me and others who are kind of on the fringe of things, for whatever reason, we've been forced out way beyond our comfort zones a number of times. And guess what? Not only can you survive, you can do more than survive. You know, you can live a happy life. You might not believe that, but that's true. Anyway, what did I not? No, there's not a whole lot. I don't know. I'm trying to look at that SBF guy. He's doing a whole bunch of shit. Like he's still trying to influence this trial. The trial of Sam Bankman-Fried is coming up this October. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, because they're saying now the people who cooperated with the feds are now not cooperating with the feds. He's probably trying to pay them off behind the scenes. They want to cut him off. They want to cut off his internet access or something because they're catching him messaging people. That's kind of a semi-interesting subplot. But if the trial kicks off in October, I wonder when it's going to finish, because 2024, April 2024, May 2024, the next big event in Bitcoin is the halvening event. So right now, you get 9 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. You pour all this energy into it, do all the calculations. You get 9 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. Well, after April of 2024, you're only going to get 4.5 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. The amount that the reward is going to be cut in half. So that's going to be that drives price action. So let's see how that goes. But that's that's about a year away, and it's going to dovetail somehow or other with the trial of this SBF character. So I'm looking forward to that. But with that, anyway, what hour and 6 viewership at this point has plummeted. I am in, I think it's just because it's late. I'm in the basement viewership wise. But anyway, Virgil Doc Purple Heart, everybody that showed up, everybody that will show up in the future, make sure you ask yourself this question on the screen right now. Ask yourself this question and then come to the proper conclusion. Come to the proper conclusion. There's the proper conclusion right there. Smash up the like button. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys, for showing up, and I'll talk to you again next week.